Is this the right time?
Right.
What do I?
Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started on this April 17th, 2025 meeting of the Cannabis Compliance Board. Can we please have a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Durrett.
Here.
Member Merritt.
Present.
Dr. Mazarana.
Here.
General Barry.
Here.
Chair Guzman Freilich.
Here.
We have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you very much. We've got a relatively short meeting today. So first we'll start with our public comment. We'll go to the south and the north and we'll go online. And we'll have some instructions for how to do the public comment online before we do the public comment in the south.
To provide public comment via telephone, call 669-444-9171. Enter webinar ID 854-8016-3615, followed by passcode 832493.
Thank you. Okay, public comment in the south, come on up and just state your name for the record.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So my name is Tara Baker. I'm with Eco Weed Disposal Solutions, and we are a waste management company here in Southern Nevada. And we just wanted to let you know that we are here to assist with any of your waste management needs. We can be reached online at ecoweed, one word, -nv.com. We should be the first one that pops, or by phone at 702-344-2393.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment in Las Vegas? Okay, I don't see additional public comment in the south. We'll go to the north. Any public comment in Reno?
There's no public comment in Reno, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Public comment online.
If you wish to provide public comment, dial *9 to raise your hand if joining by phone, or click the raise hand icon if joining via Zoom. There's no online comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Really quickly, we just have some housekeeping items on our agenda. Item number 4, this is a presentation from Brand House Nevada LLC. We'll push that up after our consent agenda items, which is item 3. And then also not on the agenda would be items 3 and 4. Those have been taken off the agenda, but for now, we'll go ahead and do the consent agenda. And the consent agenda, there are 3 items under that, and we can take care of that with a single collective motion unless one of the board members has pulled any of the 3 items on our consent agenda. If not, if you've gotten the time to review that and you have no questions from staff, then we can do a motion.
Member Mazarana moves to approve agenda item 2 on the consent, as the consent agenda.
Member Merritt, I second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And now we'll go on to item number 2 or 3 actually, which is item 6. And this is a presentation from Brand House Nevada LLC. And just by way of background, first of all, go ahead and introduce yourself and.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me back. Last time we were up here, we were part of the whole green light, so the state wellness thing, and we kind of rushed through it. And, we always liked every state that we come into. I like to meet, everybody that's part of either the CCB, MEDs, OMMUs, whatever the state is that calls it, and kind of just introduce ourselves, and fortunately, I'm going to give a quick presentation here, so I'll make it fast and, take any comments or questions that you guys may have. But thanks for having me back.
Great. Thank you. And I appreciate you coming back, and I apologize for rushing through it because I know you have a presentation for us, and it's important for all of us to learn about, your location, your license, and what it is that you guys are all doing. Thank you so much. And yeah.
Great, I'll take it away. I'll give a quick introduction about myself. Scott Knudsen. I'm one of the 3 Knudsen brothers. We founded Keef Brands back in 2010 out of Colorado. We were one of the first licensees and way back in the early medical days. So we've been at this for about 15 years. And you can go to the next slide, please. skip through some of this. We came from a family background. We were in construction in the early 2000s. My background's in construction management. Went to school at Colorado State. We had a family construction company, went under in 2008 with the crash. I joined the Marine Corps. I did 8 years in the Marines as an explosive ordnance disposal technician, a couple combat tours. During that time, my family actually started the cannabis business. They convinced me in 2015 to get out, and after a couple tours, I was about done with it. So I was happy to come into the cannabis space. A little bit of a learning curve, coming from the military to this. It's been, honestly dealing with a lot of the compliance regulations, things like that, to transition my skills of the military over to the cannabis space. It is a very regulated industry, and kind of having some of that background, drive for that really helped out. My younger brother, Kelly, is also involved in the business. He owns isolate extraction systems. They're one of the largest supercritical CO2 manufacturers. They also acquired Apex. He's a mechanical engineer by trade. And my older brother, Eric Knudsen, who was really the founder, who's got a master's in business from the University of Colorado. So kind of combined with our skill sets, we've been effectively able to, you can go to the next slide, please. We've been effective in bringing Keef Brands, which is the U.S.'s largest cannabis-infused beverage company, into multiple markets. Next slide. We're in 16 markets around the U.S. right now. We have about, I'll get to Carmen in a second. We have about 40% of the entire cannabis beverage market at this point. We've also entered into the D9 space, which I know is kind of controversial to a lot of different states. What we do is we don't bring it into any state that has a licensed program, and we only bring it into states that have passed laws and regulations that allow for it. We do not do direct-to-consumer shipping. We only do brick and mortar. So we're in a lot of total wines and specs and things like that. Any place that actually provides age gating is the only places that will actually do products.
What's DNI?
Hemp-based products. So
DNI?
hemp-based THC, yeah.
But what does DNI stand for?
D9, excuse me,
D9.
Delta 9.
Oh, D9. Okay. I got it. Okay.
One of the other brands that we started is called Karma. This was a way for us to kind of bridge out of the beverage space and give a product that gives back to the communities that we enter into. We give a portion of our profits, up to 5%, back to local community charities. Last year, we gave back about $14,000 to Volunteers for Medicine here in Las Vegas, and we're closing out at about $9,000. What we gave back to charity in Q1. We got a whole line of products, RSO, infused pre-rolls, gummies, everything like that. So we're really excited to see that brand kind of expand and bring it into a bunch of our other markets. But we did launch it here in the state of Nevada. And also, I do call Nevada home, even though we're based out of Colorado. I've lived here for about 6 years. I'm happy to call Las Vegas my home for a long time. Thank you. Just showing some of the data here. Again, I reworked this slide for this. We do have Karma there. We're number 10 infused pre-roll currently in the market, gaining traction. So we've had a really good launch into the market, sustainable traction going into it. Also, RSO, we launched it, which is a medical-based product, Rick Simpson oil. It's one of the earliest medical products that was around. It's a full spectrum product that provides really good relief to patients in the market. So we're always not focused just on the recreational side of it. We do want to bring medical aspects back to cannabis that we really believe in. For one, it really helped me coming out of the Marines. Oxy, all that stuff. They prescribed me everything coming out. I was injured on my last deployment. Using medical cannabis, I was able to get off of all of my prescription medications over the course of, by 2017, I got out in 2015. So I do believe in medical aspects of cannabis. Next slide, please. This is showing our complete lineup of Keef products. We are more than just a beverage at this point. We've got about 32 different SKUs of beverages, but we also make concentrates, vape pens, gummies, and a whole slew of other products across the board. Next slide. There we go. This is showing our market data here in carbonated beverages. And this is in the state of Nevada. Actually, so we have about 80% of the current carbonated beverage market at this point. In Nevada, we've been doing really well here. HaHa, of course, Planet 13 still has theirs. And then a lot of other people have dropped out of the beverage space to enter into the hemp space, which has allowed us to continue our growth. But we really do believe in the licensed markets. And we want to continue to expand into that category because I do believe they're going to be shutting down a lot of the hemp-based. Next slide, please. This is Nevada beverages total. Obviously, we have, there's still a few beverages in the market here that we're competing with. We're also going to be bringing in a few more beverage brands from outside of the state. We do have one of the largest beverage manufacturing facilities that was at Silver State Wellness that Michael Hayford built back in the day. So we do want to continue to expand that category, as we believe there's really good overlap between bringing people, away from alcohol and more into the cannabis space with a beverage type product. A lot of people recognize it more versus eating a gummy or, flowers. Next slide, please. This is showing the national data, key brands up there, and then we've got about 100 different competitors, but we've got a very large gap between us and the rest of the competition nationwide at this point. Next slide, please. This is interesting. I wanted to share some Nevada market data with you guys. And obviously you see a lot of the data, but it's really interesting to see a lot of people talk about, oh, the market's down, the market's down. The market is down in certain categories. However, this is showing market data across starting in 2022 to 2023, you do see a decline. And this is edibles specifically. What we saw last year was actually a really good increase in edible sales. While flower is beginning to compress down, mainly due to price, edible sales have actually increased and have held pretty flat on revenue base. So we're pushing pretty heavy. And I think what a lot of that is, a lot of people are new consumers coming to the market. They don't want to smoke. They're a little more health conscious. They're going to gravitate towards an edible product. So we're going to continue to push into those categories. Next slide, please. Again, this is showing the Nevada market in edibles. You can see starting way back here in 2020. Kind of that slide down right there. And then 2024, we saw a really nice increase in overall sales across the board. Next slide. That's the end of my presentation. I wanted to keep it short for everybody. And then if you have any questions, open up. Some highlights. We've always been in the market for a long time. We did win Best Edible Consumer Choice last year here in Nevada, which was super exciting for us.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But anyways, yeah, very excited to be here. Excited to work with you. I do want to say, we've had that MSA in place for about a year now. So I have been working with, Hayford and Silver State Wellness as we transition the license. I've had a lot of, interactions with the CCB, auditing, teams that come in and tour the facility and everything, and, product submissions. And, obviously we worked in a lot of states. I want to say that the professionalism of your guys' teams has been really good. And I've really enjoyed working with everybody on your staff.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you. Thanks. Any questions from board members?
I have questions. I can't remember, even though it was just a few months ago, when we approved the MSA, was there also a transfer of interest? Are you also a licensee
Yes,
now?
we are going to be transferring it. What we're doing is so there were some back taxes that had to get taken care of. We paid down the back taxes. We then had a revised APA agreement that was submitted from Altmore and Silver State Wellness, who was the debt lender on it. So we're working on the final terms of the final payment. I paid about 50% down on it, and then there's a final payment that's due. So we're working through that. We're hoping to close that out in June, which would then initiate the final transfer of the license.
Which licenses?
The Silver State Wellness.
No, but
Processing license now.
just processing?
Just processing.
Okay.
Yes. Well, and the distribution license.
Okay.
We don't do cultivation. We've done everything from cultivation to dispensaries. We sold all of our assets, or actually we shut down our cultivation in Colorado about 2 years ago, and it's just sitting empty. We decided to focus on, what are we? Are we a farmer? Are we 7-Eleven? Or are we, a brand production company? And we've decided that we are a brand production company. We want to drive in and focus on what we're good at, and that's developing brands and let everybody else do what they're really good at.
Do you have processing licenses in other states?
We do, yes.
How many? How many other states?
So we operate in about 16 different states. I hold a license in Florida that we're getting up and operational. We just won one in the last round. We've got licenses in Colorado, Arizona. Where else? So we're JV'd in Michigan. We do a lot of licensing. So just like with Brand House, what we're focused on is, yes, we produce our own product. We also allow people to come in and we find good, either local operators that don't have the resources to stand up their license. It's really expensive to do it. So we'll find people with good products that want to get into the market and then help them build their brand. So, and we utilize the same resources in other states. So we operate in 16 markets, but in a lot of them, we don't own the license personally. It may be a JV situation or it's just a licensing brand situation. But all in all, I think, call it 8 to 12 licenses if you include some of the distribution licenses that we hold in other states.
One more. Your presentation was so good. Thank you. That's why I'm like, oh, you're an expert. I want to ask you everything. I want you to come teach at UNLV. So I've just heard it's like a throwaway. I've never done research on it. I'm not an expert on it. I've heard there's not significant brand loyalty in cannabis. So obviously you would disagree with that. I'm glad I haven't gone around saying that myself. What do you think about that?
So I think just like with any product in any, category, I don't think cannabis is a very unique aspect. I think a lot of people want to make it more unique than what it is. I believe that there is brand loyalty. However, people are price conscious, especially in, economic times like this, where you're seeing increased, costs at the grocery store and things like that for goods that people have to buy. So looking at needs and wants, cannabis is a want for a lot of people. It's a need for medical patients. However, what we see is that, a lot of consumers, it's price. So we call it milligram shoppers. They come in and they're looking for, okay, what is a price point that I can get something at the cheapest milligram? And that's where you probably hear that people aren't loyal to brands. They're going to come in and find the cheapest product. However, we believe in bringing a value product to people that they can afford, that also tastes really good, and as product efficacy on that side. If we can hit all three of those categories, we believe that we do have brand loyalty, and we've seen that. Actually, the slide's down, but I should have showed some of the price comparisons in our products. We also we don't race people to the bottom. So if somebody enters the market and they start driving the price down on us because they're trying to beat us, we hold our price. One, we don't believe it's good for the dispensaries. Dispensaries always want to sell as cheap a product as they can. However, that's not good for their top line revenue. People are going to buy the product anyways. And we believe in holding price at where we can. So just even on our data on our beverages, our average price is almost $4 on the retail side, higher than our next competitor in the market. And we're seeing month over month continued growth. So we've been able to efficiently prove that, yes, brands do matter. We provide good marketing. We provide a good, fun product, and it tastes good. And we see consumers come back to buy it.
So it seems like the company's able to pivot no matter what happens at the federal level, right? If the floodgates open and somehow low dose intoxicating hemp becomes what's no longer being enforced upon throughout the country, you're good. If that all gets shut down somehow, you're good. You'll just go with the cannabis.
That's right. We've got a kind of a foot on both sides of it. However, my brother is also one of the founders of Attach, the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp, and he sits on the chair with Michael Bronstein of that. He's also the founder of the Cannabis Beverage Association. So he spends a lot of time in DC doing all this lobbying. I wish that he was here last time. I wish he could be here with us right now because he can tell you everything that's going on with that. But I will do my best to answer that question. We believe what a lot of the lobbying power right now that we're seeing, cannabis doesn't have one voice. I'm sure you guys have seen that. Everybody wants to say something completely different, and we can't all get our stuff together to say, this is exactly what we want. And that's happening in DC also. Who's been really effective for us actually is the liquor lobbyists. Alcohol saw a decline in almost 15% sales nationally over the last 3-4 years. By having these D9 10 milligrams and lower, we don't sell anything other than, above that. The liquor stores love it. They've seen that actually take that place of that decline in sales. So the liquor lobbyists have been doing a very good job of lobbying for what we're pitching also is that, keep high dose products at the dispensaries. Low dose products at places that do age gating. We don't want it at every convenience store across the country, but it makes sense in liquor stores where, they are going to do that age gating. We don't see a lot of 10 milligram sales at the dispensaries anyways. 10 milligram sales make up maybe 5% of our overall revenue. What that does though is that, and if you think back, we're all kind of at the age where we remember near beer being at grocery stores, you had that 3.5 and the 5%. You can go into a grocery store and buy it, but you still have to go to a liquor store to buy your high dose stuff. We see that as really the transition of what's going to happen now is that they're going to block all of the really high dosed stuff, and they're going to allow some of the lower dose products to be sold into liquor stores and amend some of those regulations. That's what the liquor lobbyists are pushing, and they do have the ear of the, the people in DC. That process. So to think that they're going to completely open it up, and do that, I think is, counterintuitive to history. of, regulated products. I don't see that ever necessarily happening, but I think that there is going to be some framework where it's kind of a mixed thing. And I see it as a benefit to the cannabis industry because there's a lot of people that are afraid to walk into a dispensary. There's a lot of, I don't want to say soccer moms necessarily, and even, professional adults who don't want to see their car parked out front of a dispensary. However, they do go to a liquor store and they can go in there and they can try cannabis for the first time in a low dose format. And if it works for them, maybe then at that point, they will go into a dispensary. And so we could potentially see our consumer base increase in overall revenue.
Question on the infused drinks. In order to sell high volume, you have to partner up with a distributor, right? With a liquor distributor, just like
Yeah.
just like regular drinks. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So we work with Southern Wine Glaziers. Like I said, we're in about, 1,200 total wines. We're partnered with Specs, which is Texas's largest liquor store chain. So we utilize their distribution platform. We're also very fortunate to have Scott Coors on our board of directors with Keith. So he's been very instrumental in helping guide us, along that path of finding the correct distributors and doing it in an ethical manner.
But you're not in Nevada, right? Not in, the Delta 9 products are not in Nevada.
No. One, because we sell into the licensed market here, we're very cautious right now. Even if a state does allow D9 products, we don't want to sell against our dispensary partners right now until we do figure out the framework. So the 9 states that we are selling into don't have necessarily a licensed program, or we don't have licenses in those states.
And do you see restaurants coming into the picture and starting to serve?
I haven't seen it yet. I've seen it. It's kind of crazy. I've had people send me photos of it in, not our product, but send me photos of it in, the vending machines in some states. And, I'm like, how are they necessarily age gating some of this stuff? I don't see it getting into restaurants very quickly, at least in most of the states. Again, I don't think that that's necessarily a good idea to sell cannabis at a liquor establishment for purposes of, especially, even for myself, if I'm drinking and I consume a cannabis product, those kind of mixed effects are not necessarily the best thing, and the last thing that we need is more negative press on the cannabis side of, oh gosh, somebody got in an accident because they were drinking and using cannabis and they left an establishment. That's just going to take us in the wrong direction. So, I agree with slow steps in the right direction, but I think, just, putting it at brick and mortar liquor stores where they age gate and then people can take it home and consume it in a safer manner is the best.
Very interesting presentation. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate that. All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Good
Work
luck.
with you guys.
I appreciate you coming back. Okay. Item 3, this is a request for a transfer of interest, Premium Products LLC, but that item has been pulled from the agenda. Item 4, this is a consideration of the approval of a conditional license for a cannabis consumption lounge. And that item has also been pulled from the agenda. There are no questions from the board members. I know that there's counsel here in case there are any questions with regard to the pulled items. But if not, then we'll just move on to item 5 on the agenda. And this is a consideration of a proposed settlement agreement to resolve disciplinary action. And this is with regard to the Hempire Company LLC. Ms. Bordelove, if you could please give us your presentation.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. For the record, I'm Emily N. Bordelove, Senior Deputy Attorney General, appearing as counsel for the CCB for agendized item 5A, Hempire Company LLC, case number 2023-031. The settlement agreement here was prepared by my colleague at the Attorney General's office, Mr. Anthony Garassi. I will be presenting it to the board for your consideration and approval today. Respondent Hempire is a cannabis facility located just outside Tonopah, Nevada. At the time of the subject investigation and audit, Hempire was dual licensed for both cultivation and production, meaning it held 4 licenses: cultivation medical use, cultivation adult use, production medical use, and production adult use. In 2024, under NRS 678B215, these dual licenses have been combined under one adult license, or adult use license that can operate as medical. So currently, Hempire operates under 2 licenses, one cultivation adult use license under CEID C184 and one production adult use license under CEID P120. Currently, Empire is subject to a court-ordered receivership under Mr. Kevin Singer. As the board may recall, it approved an application for the transfer of Empire's licenses to Tonopah Farm LLC. This sale has since closed. So for reference going forward, I will refer to the facility as the facility or Empire or respondent, the receiver as the receiver or Mr. Kevin Singer, and the current owners and operators as Tonopah Farm. Please note that Tonopah Farm was not operating these licenses at the time the alleged violations took place. The procedural history of this matter is outlined in paragraphs 2 through 11 in the settlement agreement before you. In summary, this case arose from an audit and investigation of respondent under its prior ownership in late 2023. This resulted in a summary suspension in November 2023. After the summary suspension, respondent was put under the previously mentioned court order receivership. Receivers Council entered into a management service agreement with an affiliate company of Tonopah Farm, and that group invested time and resources into the license to get them in compliance and ultimately lift the summary suspensions. That group then entered into the agreement to buy the licenses out of receivership, which was ultimately approved by the court and later by the board as referenced previously. As to the procedural status of this matter, no complaint was drafted or served, as after the summary suspension, the CCB, through the Attorney General's office, entered into settlement discussions with Receivers Council and Tonopah Farms Council to see if a resolution could be reached before needing to file a complaint. The result of these discussions is memorialized in the settlement agreement that's before you. As outlined in paragraph 3, there were separate allegations against the cultivation and production licenses. But in short, these were allegations of violations surrounding security measures, production run thresholds, seed to sale tracking of cannabis, tagging of cannabis products, inventory control issues surrounding harvest information and waste management, and inventory and sales reporting issues. As outlined in paragraphs 20 through 21, to resolve these matters, respondent Empire admits to 2 separate violations. One category 3 violation as to C184 for failing to follow an approved security plan, and one category 4 violation as to P120 for improper storage of cannabis and cannabis products. The parties agree that respondent will pay civil penalties in the total of $30,000, which is allocated equally amongst the licenses, so $15,000 each. The payments will be due 30 days from the date the settlement agreement is approved by the board and the district court in the receivership action. In other words, 30 days from the latest of the required approvals. District court is scheduled to hear the receiver's motion for approval of this disciplinary settlement agreement on April 24th, 2025, which is 1 week from today. Therefore, if the board approves the settlement agreement today, and if the court approves the stipulation and order at the hearing next week, and the order is filed the same day as the hearing and the notice of entry, the payment of civil penalties will be due on or before Monday, May 26th, 2025 at 5 p.m. So to be clear, the 30 days starts to run on the date the order for the last required approval is filed. As outlined in paragraph 18 of the settlement agreement, the CCB staff and council fully considered the mitigating factors in coming to this resolution, and the parties have agreed to the equal weighing of the mitigating factors. Significant mitigating factors help shape the terms of this agreement, including Tonopah Farms' investment, both in terms of money and as well as commitment to involve itself in licenses under receivership that were summarily suspended, and ultimately lifting the suspension and positioning the business into a place where it could operate and generate revenue. As outlined in paragraph 19 of the settlement agreement, CCB staff and council also fully considered the factors set forth in NCCR 4.0302 in determining the amount of civil penalty to assess. This includes the consideration of the size of respondent's business as well as its ability to pay. These factors were also considered in determining the terms of the agreeable payment plan. Given the mitigating factors, the civil penalty amount is reasonable. Furthermore, taking the matter to a hearing could have resulted in a higher civil penalty and additional violations attached to each license. But as described, the CCB believes the mitigating factors identified justified the agreed-upon penalty and allocation between licenses. Respondent also provided a plan of correction, which is detailed in paragraph 31 of the settlement agreement. The CCB staff has approved this plan as a precursor to lifting the summary suspensions, and Tonopah Farms is operating these licenses without compliance issues. Bringing these licenses into compliance was a mitigating factor the CCB considered in determining the settlement. So based on the facts of this case, as I've outlined, the Attorney General's Office recommends and requests that the board approve the settlement agreement before you. I'm available for any questions, such as are counsel for the receiver, Ms. John Savage, and counsel for Tonopah Farms, Michael Cristalli. And with that, I submit.
Thank you so much. Welcome again. Welcome.
Morning, Chair.
Any corrections or concerns or?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. No corrections or concerns. I think council was very thorough in the presentation. I just would like to thank the board, council, and staff throughout the process, even going back to the summary suspension. I thought everybody was very collaborative rather than adversarial, which I thought was helpful. And I think that the discipline proposed is fair and rather than indifferent to the consequences. And also, I think throughout the process, the board was protective to the public, but not necessarily punishing on the licensee, which I thought was great, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Mr. Cristalli.
Chair, the only thing I point out as far as Tonopah Farms, as the board is aware, because of the approval of the MSA, Tonopah Farms took over the operations in March 2024. Since that period of time, it's probably invested close, if not $6 million into restoring the operations to be in compliance with the regulations, and has, as the board is aware, as a result of the plan of correction, complied with all of those requirements, got the licenses out of summary suspension, and is operational.
Great. Okay. Well, good job, everybody. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? I do have the signed stipulation here. Any comments, concerns, questions? Okay. Up north, any questions or concerns? Okay, then. And with that, I'll take a motion and then I'll sign it after the meeting so we can get that over to the court and get it approved.
Member Barry?
Who's on, we have another council? I can't read underneath.
Oh, sorry. This is Scott Yaris. He is the senior project manager for the receiver, Kevin Singer. Mr. Singer was not available today, so Mr. Yaris is available if the board has any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Member Mazarano moves to approve agenda item 5 and adopt the settlement terms agreed upon by the parties involved.
Your second?
Member Drat, a second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, motion carries. Great. Thank you both for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the board.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and that's. Okay, and we already heard item 6. Now we go on to item 7. This is the briefing from the chair and the executive director. Executive director has a lot of items to cover with regard to our bill, so I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the board, for the record, James Hum, Executive Director. As per the Chair's request during the January 2025 board meeting, legislative update will be provided at each board meeting throughout the 2025 legislative session. We'll begin with R1 CCB sponsored bill. The CCB prepared and submitted AB 76, which, as referred to in my testimony in February, is a run the agency type bill. This bill was presented to the Assembly Committee on Judiciary on February 12th. There is no fiscal impact identified. Please note, as also stated in the presentation of the committee, after engaging with stakeholders and industry members, CCB also submitted a substantive amendment for the committee's review. We received several questions on the bill and clarified as necessary to the Assembly members. We did receive initial feedback after the presentation from stakeholders and subsequently submitted one additional small amendment. Bill passed out of the Assembly Judiciary Committee on Monday, April 7th, with a vote of 11-3. We're now waiting for it to make it to the Assembly for first House vote and hopefully passage. And we have to accomplish that by the 22nd. So we will know by the next meeting if we are on to the Senate. Currently, 5 other Assembly bills we are tracking that made it out of committee and are related to cannabis. AB 149 requires the CCB to adopt regulations governing certain agreements to share information and data maintained by the board. Also asked for an appropriation of $3.3 million from the general fund for cannabis research and to fund the CPI. This bill was amended to clarify that the funds would be used for direct costs associated with operations, not indirect costs or overhead expenses. Bill passed out of Assembly Judiciary on April 3rd as amended and do pass as amended. It was added to the Assembly floor agenda yesterday, April 16th. So hopefully we will get a vote on that. AB 203, the original bill language contained multiple provisions that have been amended. This bill was heard on Wednesday, February 26th. We appeared in neutral. We are continuing to engage with stakeholders and the bill sponsor on potential amendments as more might be forthcoming in the Senate. We submitted a fiscal note on this bill regarding the new position it originally created, but with the amendment, we would be able to remove that. We've indicated as such as it removes the social equity liaison position. Additional agencies did place fiscal notes on this bill. I don't know the status of those at that time because those are controlled by the other agencies. This bill passed out of Assembly Judiciary on April 10th as amended and do pass as amended. Work session document included several changes, including the removal of the social equity position liaison, removal of certain exemptions for OSHA requirements, and change the delivery allowability provisions, among several other changes. We are awaiting final amended language for the specifics, but if the board would like to read more rather than read the 12-page amendment, I would direct the board to that document. AB 307, this bill revises provisions governing the taxation of sales of cannabis and cannabis products, eliminating the excise tax on wholesale sales of cannabis, which currently stands at 15%. It increases the amount of the excise tax on retail sales of cannabis and cannabis products from 10% to 14.25%. It also revises the manner in which the revenue from the excise tax on retail sales of cannabis and cannabis products must be distributed concerning local jurisdictions. CCB submitted a fiscal note on that bill as drafted and at the tax rates indicated in the bill. The bill did pass out of Assembly revenue on April 11th without recommendation from the committee. Work session document added back in the distribution to the local governments for certain costs, which would change the original fiscal note submitted. This is a 2/3 bill, so it will go to the money committees. We're awaiting final amended language for the specifics, which would come when it is heard in Assembly Ways and Means, which was, as mentioned, referred to on April 15th. AB 308, this bill revises provisions relating to cannabis establishment agents. It authorizes the CCB in accordance with policies and procedures established by the board to waive any requirements to obtain a registration card for a person who holds an ownership interest of 5% or more in a cannabis establishment, clarifies the procedures by which an owner, officer, or board member of a cannabis establishment may obtain a registration card, revises provisions governing the renewal of registration cards, and just to kind of skip ahead, effectively what it does is it changes the cost of an agent card on top of the 5% ownership regulations, updating those. It essentially makes it $150 for an agent, but bumps up the cost for an owner, operator, or board member to $400. This is also a 2/3 majority bill, meaning it needs 2/3 of both legislative bodies to vote yes on it to pass. Passed out of Assembly on April 9th. As due pass, referred to Ways and Means on April 14th for a potential hearing and approval given the cost and necessary 2/3 vote. Lastly, in the Assembly Bill 504 establishes provisions relating to deceptive trade practices and the sale of hemp products. Bill requires individuals who do not hold a cannabis establishment license and who sell or offer to sell hemp products intended for human consumption to display a sign in a conspicuous location notifying customers that they are not a licensed cannabis establishment. It prohibits such individuals from making false, misleading, or deceptive statements in advertising regarding their licensing status, the nature of their location, or the hemp products being sold. Violations of these provisions constitute deceptive trade practice, subjecting violators to civil and criminal penalties. This bill passed out of Assembly Judiciary on April 10th as amended and do pass as amended. It includes two amendments. One, amend to additionally prohibit claims that the hemp product is cannabis or that it produces any intoxicating effects. The CCB submitted this amendment to clarify language that was originally introduced on the hemp products. The second amendment adds new language to the bill requiring applicable regulatory bodies to promulgate regulations specifying the details of the sign to clearly notify customers that individuals selling certain hemp products are not a licensed cannabis establishment. I will pause here because there are 9 Senate bills. So I'm going to see if you guys have any questions before we jump to the Senate.
Out of all of those assembly bills, if all of them were to pass, which one would be the most significant as far as how it would affect the CCB?
Chair, I'm going to punt that question and say all of them because I don't want to offend any bill sponsors, but they are all significant. So just to kind of give a quick run back through 149 would be to partner with research institutions on what data sharing agreements. 203 is kind of a omnibus bill, if you will. I know it wouldn't be referred to that, but there's a lot of different concepts in there that would affect this CCB and really operations of our licensees. 307 would be a significant shift in taxation. Again, not really impacting the CCB itself, but certainly impacting tax and tax revenues to the state. AB 308, that would impact our agent card holders specifically, enabling them to consolidate down to the agent cards to one single agent card, regardless of license type. And AB 504 would help our licensees in so much for some of those bad actors that are, on the consumer protection side, violating certain prohibitions and making false claims to consumers. So all equally important. Again, don't want to offend any bill sponsors, but just as you can tell, kind of a very diverse set of updates and fixes that help both licensees as well as kind of indicate to us as the operational side of the board on, kind of what the legislators are seeing and hearing from their constituents on what they want to update.
On that equity liaison, so has that been removed? The entire position been removed?
The position was removed. That was removed out of 203 in section 1.
Okay.
That initially it created that position within our office.
Without funding for it?
But without funding for it. So we did put a fiscal note on that, and then they removed that section 1 that created that position.
We have something similar to that now in our staffing, somebody who actually does those kinds of duties.
Not specific to what was asked for in the bill, but in general, I would tend towards yes, especially on the social equity consumption lounges. We have a large group that has worked on those in the past, continues to work on those, especially from a suitability standpoint. Once the licenses were selected. So yes, over several years, numerous different folks have not necessarily consolidated that role into one individual, but numerous folks throughout the agency have worked on those specific issues, including myself on many of the different roundtables that we've been on. And again, at our budget hearing, they had asked about the social equity consumption lounges, continue to get questions, and I continue to reach out to legislators on that because I know that's not only such an important topic, but something that has come up a lot during the session. Good.
Question. What was it? Oh, on the bill that eliminates the wholesale tax and then it impacts the local government's tax. What are they doing with the local governments? They shared $5 million in tax, right? So what's happening with that?
So an amendment was submitted, I think there was 308, to add that 5 million distribution back to the local governments. The initial bill draft language as introduced took out that distribution. The amendment adds that distribution back.
Okay, so it'd be distributed the same way it has been in the past.
Same way it has been in the past.
And that distributes some to local governments that prohibit cannabis, right?
I can get you the specifics, but I believe out of there's 3.5 million that's sheerly population based and 1.5 million that just goes to the localities, or I could have that flip. I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me, but it's 3.5 and 1.5. One's population based and one's license based.
Okay, yeah. There's very few local governments that don't allow it at this
Mhm.
point, but there are still local governments
Mhm.
receiving funds for.
I will say, again, I don't have it specifically in front of me. It's a very small percentage. So if you take like one of the small cities in a rural jurisdiction, I think some of them it's like $1,500. Yeah. All right, you ready? Up to the Senate. Excellent. In addition to these 5 assembly bills, we are not monitoring 9 Senate bills. First one, SB 25 would add cannabis cultivation facilities and cannabis production facilities to the state fire marshal's jurisdiction with regards to matters of fire safety, access, means, and adequacy of exit. This bill was presented to the Committee on Government Affairs on February 12th, 2025, passed out of Assembly Judiciary on April 10th as amended and do pass as amended. It included 2 amendments with one touching on cannabis. The amendment removes cannabis cultivation facilities from the types of facilities which the state fire marshal would enforce laws and adopt regulations, and shifts that jurisdiction to cannabis production facilities. So it takes it away from cultivation and moves it over to production. Senate Bill 41, this one's gonna be a little bit of a long report. Senate Bill 41 requires that a cannabis tax permit be obtained from the Department of Taxation by any business wishing to engage in the sale of cannabis in Nevada. Department of Tax has worked very closely with industry on this and has actually asked for our input as well. The bill passed out of Assembly Judiciary on April 10th as amended and do pass as amended. This bill included several amendments by the Department of Tax that make the following changes to the bill. It adds the requirement for sellers of cannabis to obtain the seller's permit and cannabis tax permit before being approved for a license from the Cannabis Compliance Board. It adds the requirement for the Department of Taxation to issue a tax permit within 15 days after receiving an application. It adds various provisions to the process of revoking a cannabis tax permit, specifying timelines and how a permit holder can cure any delinquency, and authorizing the permit holder to continue operating until there is a final decision. It adds various provisions to the appeal process with the Nevada Tax Commission. It adds that upon written request of a licensee, the Department of Taxation shall provide a certificate of amount due to a licensee who seeks to transfer any ownership interest in the license. It adds a new section to provide an effective date of December 31, 2026, and for the timing and criteria by which existing licensees must apply for and obtain a cannabis tax permit on or after the effective date of this bill. It adds new provisions specifying the failure of an existing licensee to qualify for a permit by the effective date of this act. By the effective date of this act will result in suspension of the license by the board.
Still on the same one?
That one finished. We have 7 more Senate
I
bills.
just have questions on that one.
Yep.
Isn't there a lot of overlap with the CCB and taxation?
There is in general, yes, there is. But we do remember, we don't do any tax collection and we are not responsible for actually updating those reports. So we rely heavily on taxation, as we've heard before in the last couple of meetings for those reports. So in this effect, this creates a layer as well for the licensee to appeal to the tax commission to work through these issues and then them to effectively work with the licensee on the tax permit itself so that it's not an automatic revocation of taxes unpaid.
I thought they already had that. With taxation, you can appeal.
Not specifically with for us with taxation. I think Deputy Director Miles, can I call on you? Am I explaining this accurately? I think I'm missing one key point here.
Excise taxes are covered that way. Sales taxes are covered.
Oh, okay.
It didn't have any functionality to go after the excise taxes. We're the only ones to do that. And again, we did that at the renewal period. So if they weren't caught up when we renewed, we just didn't renew them. So it ended up being they paid right before renewal and they stopped paying to some people, not everybody, of course, stopped paying after renewal, then they ran up a bill, and then they paid right before renewal. And we're trying to fix that problem.
By having taxation do it.
Yes.
Instead of us doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it adds an appeal process for them to go like every other state licensee that holds a tax permit to go through the tax commission process. So it's not an automatic revocation from us.
That's what it is from us. At least tax, they can go through the whole process.
Okay. All right. But it's not based, I guess my concern was that there was a lot of overlap and then with taxation, basically then doing revocations of licenses, but they still would have, that's their tax license, not the cannabis license.
Correct. But go ahead, Michael.
I was gonna say, yeah,
But if
they
they don't have
suspend that
a
license, then they won't have all the license necessary to operate, then we would come in front of you and we would suspend them as well.
okay.
with no recourse to reissue because there's no additional licensing rounds. So they would just, it would get revoked and they would lose it. So this actually,
That's a different procedure. If they do it under tax, that's when they would suspend the license. Then we have regulations that say you have all licenses and permits have to be
Up to date.
or else you're suspended. And that's what would happen if that gets suspended. Then we would just suspend them instead of having to revoke them at the renewal period.
Okay. All right, thank you.
excellent. All right, SB 81 revises various provisions governing education and it specifies details for the state education fund. State section 34, 33 and 34, the bill originally required the Department of Tax and the Cannabis Compliance Board respectively to distribute certain revenues from excise tax on cannabis products and fees imposed on cannabis to the state treasurer on a quarterly basis for deposit in the state education fund. We worked with the Department of Education on this as it is their omnibus bill to ensure that we would have the funds to make quarterly transferred. This bill passed out of Senate Education on April 11th as amended and due pass. The relevant amendment to the CCB is that it removes sections 33 and 34 concerning the timing for transfers of revenue to the state education fund. So effectively, as the tax revenue rolls in, first and second quarter for us operationally are very tight. So then the large tranches of money typically get transferred in the third and fourth quarter. So they actually removed us from that bill. So that one actually will not appear on subsequent, or I guess there's only one more, but on the final briefing during session. So SB 81 will roll off. SB 157, this bill requires the CCB to adopt regulations setting forth requirements relating to the testing of cannabis and cannabis products and sets forth various requirements for the contents of those regulations. Essentially, this bill addresses lot size testing, which the board heard at the September 2024 meeting in relation to a petition filed pursuant to NCCR 4.145. They presented this bill on Wednesday, March 5th. It passed out of Senate Commerce and Labor on March 24th as due pass and received a Senate vote of 19-0 to 1. It has not been heard in the Assembly yet. SB 168, this bill increases the maximum quantities of usable cannabis, THC, and concentrated cannabis that a single package of certain types of adult use cannabis products may contain. Additionally, this bill requires the Cannabis Compliance Board to adopt regulations setting forth procedures and requirements for the issuance of a hold order for cannabis or a cannabis product and allows a board's agent only to issue such a hold order in accordance with these regulations. This bill was presented on Wednesday, March 5th. We asked bill sponsor to extend the hearing time from 14 days to 30 days, which was accepted, and we continue to engage with stakeholders and the bill sponsor on potential amendments, which we're very thankful for. This bill passed out of Senate Commerce and Labor originally on March 21st as amended and due pass as amended. However, after additional input from the CCB and industry, this bill was reconsidered, amended, and ultimately passed again out of committee on April 9th. So key for the board as we move forward, if this bill makes it through the entire process, the board we will workshop effectively pesticide regulations that the board will look at, approve, will workshop, and then eventually go to the Legislative Council for their final stamp of approval on it. SB 198, the section relevant to the CCB in this bill required the revocation of the license of a cannabis establishment that violates a federal or state labor law. Bill was presented Friday, March 14th. After the presentation and engagement from CCB and industry, the bill sponsor removed all provisions relating to the revocation of the license of a cannabis establishment. After this confirmation from the bill sponsor, we removed our agency's fiscal note. This one additionally will no longer appear on the board's briefings as it is no longer relevant to the CCB. SB 309 revises provisions relating to crimes, revises provisions relating to prohibited acts concerning the use of alcohol, marijuana, and certain other prohibited substances, increasing the maximum fine for misdemeanors, increasing the maximum fine for gross misdemeanors, providing penalties. This mainly deals with DUIs in cannabis. That's why it popped up on our list. It doesn't really impact us directly, but again, one that we're monitoring. It was presented on April 9th, passed out of committee as amended, due pass as amended on the same day. SB 356, we're almost there, I promise you, board members. SB 356 revises provisions relating to hemp and effectively hemp products. This bill was heard on April 11th. We appeared as subject matter experts and neutral on the testimony. It did not make it out of committee last Friday, so this particular bill will no longer be presented to the board, but just wanted to make you aware there was a hemp bill that was presented last Friday. SB 358, Senate Bill 358 requires, with certain exceptions, each officer, agency, board member, commission, effectively all state agencies to require certain types of payment. This bill was heard on April 11th, it passed out of committee on the same day. We worked with the Las Vegas Chamber and the bill sponsor, which we again are very thankful for, so that the CCB was actually exempted out of this, given the current structure of how we are able to receive payments still with the to do with federal banking and the challenges there. We needed kind of that carve out for ourselves. There was a couple other agencies that needed that as well. So we're thankful to the Las Vegas Chamber and the bill sponsor for working with us on that one. The CCB budget was presented on Friday, March 14th, and then subsequently unanimously approved on Tuesday, April 15th, this past Tuesday. We had 5 decision units. One was removing 2 compliance enforcement positions that are not currently needed based on the board's actual authority. We need desktop computers, laptops, and monitors under a new replacement schedule. Guns and tasers for our post officers. We reclassified a compliance audit investigator 2 to utilize this individual to perform additional data analysis, which ourselves as well as industry has asked for. Lastly, our out-of-state travel was exceptionally low, so we asked for a slight bump in that, which both the Joint Committee approved. So on the budget, testimony was heard recapping and was recapped regarding employee positions received for social equity consumption lounges, as well as questions of the $200,000 minimum requirement, in which I confirmed this money would be used for operational costs to get the businesses started, and that none of this money would actually come to the CCB. Also, I stated on record, as I just did a few minutes ago, we're happy to continue this discussion on this requirement as well as other requirements with the legislature as well as with industry. We'll continue to let it be known, and we'll continue to advise bill sponsors that we can engage where and when requested should they like to discuss the language of any of these bills. With us as subject matter experts, we will make ourselves available. As the board is aware, executive branch agency, CCB typically maintains a position in neutrality on all cannabis related legislation other than our bill. While I cannot lobby for or against such a bill, happy to offer CCB staff experience to anyone who wishes to request it. And with that very long-winded report, but necessary report, it's been a busy couple months. Thank you to the staff. Honestly, thank you to everyone at the legislature too. I doubt they're watching right now. I think they're probably on the floor or in the money committees. It's been extremely busy, but everyone's put in an exceptional amount of time. As always, the team has gone above and beyond. And for that, I thank them for that. And that is extended to our incredible counsel from the Attorney General's office as well. So, Chair, I will turn it back over to you because it feels like the last 5 months, it's always me just talking. So I will give it back to you.
Find it that way. No, and thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. And I know that we've gotten memos from Ms. Her and everybody else that explains the bills. And I really appreciate that because I don't watch all the hearings, and this is the briefing that I get. And so I appreciate all the memos from staff and our council giving us an update, as well as our PIO officers. So thank you so much. Any questions? Any questions up north? Okay. No, all right. Then with that, we've got our next meeting is on May 15th already. And any items for future agendas? Okay. Public comment. We'll start with the South. Any public comment in Las Vegas? Doesn't appear that there are any comments. What about the North? Is there any comments in Reno?
There's no comments in the North.
Thank you. And how about online?
There is no one online to provide comment.
Great. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn this April meeting. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And happy Easter.